His hands were still trembling as he put down the phone, not from fear, but from the weight of the decision he had just made. Aaron Cole had exactly 12 minutes left. 12 minutes to reach the interview that could change everything. 12 minutes to save his son's future. But the woman lying there, trapped beneath shattered concrete, her eyes blurred by fog and dust, might only have 5 minutes if no one helped her in time. The Seattle rain began to fall, mixing with blood and cement dust. Aaron knelt in the middle of the Fremont alley. His gray suit, the only one he owned, was soaked with a stranger's blood. And yet, in that chaotic moment, he had never felt more certain. Maybe he and his son would lose their apartment, maybe even have to leave the city. But that would still be better than turning his back on the woman who, right now, saw him as her entire world. Fate had always forced Aaron to choose between the impossible. Today, amid the wreckage of a 5.9 magnitude earthquake, he knew what he had to do, even if that choice meant losing everything. If you love stories about courage and the power of choice, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what happens next. But who was that woman? And why would this encounter in the Fremont alley change Aaron's life forever? 5 a.m. The small apartment in Fremont was still cloaked in darkness. Aaron Cole had been awake long before the alarm rang. Truth was, he hadn't really slept at all. He'd just lain there all night, staring at the ceiling washed in streetlight reflections, listening to the soft drizzle of Seattle rain tapping against the window, and thinking about the interview that awaited him this morning. He stepped into the kitchen, careful not to make a sound. The space was so cramped that only one person could stand to cook at a time, but Aaron had grown used to it. He'd always known how to make things work, even when they weren't perfect. On the table sat Sam's cardboard robot, his 7-year-old son's proud invention. One of its legs dangled loosely, barely hanging on by a strip of tape ready to fall off. Aaron picked it up gently, turned it in his hands, and smiled. He was good at this, seeing how broken things could fit back together again. 3 years as a mechanical engineer at a mid-sized company. Just enough salary to survive, to cover rent, Sam's tuition, and the endless medical bills that had haunted them ever since Rebecca's accident. $14,827. That number haunted him every time he opened the mailbox. $200 paid each month, and still the interest grew, like pain that never really faded, only transformed into cold, merciless figures on paper. But today could change everything. Horizon Engineering Group, one of the largest tech and engineering firms in the Pacific Northwest. Aaron had made it through 2 rounds of interviews, beating out over 200 applicants. Now, he was one of the final 5. If he got the job, his salary would triple. It would mean Sam could attend a better school. Maybe finally get those braces. Maybe move into an apartment with 2 bedrooms, where his boy wouldn't have to sleep on that worn-out sofa anymore. Aaron taped the robot's leg back on and placed it gently by Sam's bedside. The gray suit hung on the bathroom door, worn at the cuffs but pressed neatly. It was the only suit he owned, and today it had to make him look like a man who belonged in that room. 6:30 a.m. Sam shuffled into the kitchen, hair sticking up in every direction, eyes still heavy with sleep. Aaron had breakfast ready, scrambled eggs, toast, and a glass of orange juice in the only unchipped cup left. "Today's the big day, right, Dad?" Sam's voice was small but full of hope. Aaron tousled his hair and smiled. "Yeah, buddy. A very important day. If you get the new job, can we have pizza every Friday?" Pizza every Friday. A dream so simple it almost hurt, to come from a 7-year-old. Aaron felt his chest tighten. He smiled softly. "I promise. When Dad gets this job, We'll have pizza every Friday. No exceptions, 7:45 a.m., outside the school gate. Sam hugged his father's waist tightly. Good luck, Dad. You're the best engineer in the world, Aaron knelt to look his son in the eye. And you're the best kid in the world. I'll pick you up at 3, okay? He stood there watching until Sam disappeared beyond the school gate, then checked his watch. 7:45 a.m. The interview was at 9:30 downtown. 6 months of preparation for this one opportunity. 6 months of late nights after Sam fell asleep, reading Horizon's project files, rehearsing every possible question, perfecting every detail. This was his ticket out of survival mode. His chance to give Sam the stability they had never known. Aaron Cole boarded the subway, completely unaware that, in less than 2 hours, his entire world was about to shake. Literally. Monday morning. The subway was packed wall to wall with commuters. Aaron managed to find a seat by the window and opened his portfolio one last time. Inside were the designs he had poured his heart into, projects and improvements he had proposed, the ones that had once saved his old company tens of thousands of dollars. Blueprints that no one but him had ever cared about. This was his only ticket out of the endless loop of just getting by. Westlake Station. 9:15 a.m. Aaron stood as the train began to slow. Through the window, he could see the towering glass and steel building of Horizon Engineering Group gleaming beneath the morning sun over Seattle. 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, he could step into a new life. The train doors opened. Aaron stepped onto the platform. And then, the world began to shake. At first, he thought the train was still moving. Just an illusion. But then the ground lurched violently, the concrete platform bending beneath his feet. Screams erupted all around. Ceiling lights swung wildly, then came crashing down in a shower of glass. A deafening sound followed, like 1,000 wind chimes shattering at once. Aaron clung to a metal pole as his portfolio slipped from his hands, papers scattering across the trembling concrete floor. An earthquake. Later, they would say it was a 5.9 magnitude quake. The strongest Seattle had seen in a decade. And then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. A terrifying silence settled over the platform, broken only by the distant wail of sirens and the frantic shouts of people calling for loved ones. Aaron's breathing was heavy. His hands trembled, not just from fear, but from the flood of adrenaline reminding him how fragile life really was. He glanced at his watch. 9:20. 10 minutes. The Horizon building still stood just 100 meters away. He could still make it, if he ran now. Aaron knelt, hastily gathering his scattered papers, stuffing them back into the folder with shaking hands. And then he heard it. A sound so faint, it barely rose above the chaos. Help me. Someone. Please. A weak voice, coming from a narrow alley between two nearby buildings. So small, it could have been mistaken for the wind. Aaron froze. His hand still gripped the portfolio. He should keep going. He had to. 6 months of preparation. 2 rounds of interviews behind him. This was his only chance. But his feet were already moving before his mind could stop them. In the narrow alley, half hidden by trash bins and rubble, lay a woman pinned beneath a slab of shattered concrete. She looked about 35, her black business suit now covered in dust and blood. A deep gash ran down her forehead, blood streaming across her face. Her left leg was trapped under the weight of concrete, twisted at an angle that made Aaron's stomach turn. Her eyes opened wide, locking onto him through the haze of dust. "Please," she gasped. I can't feel my leg." Aaron dropped the portfolio. His body moved before his thoughts could catch up. He knelt beside her, assessing the situation with the instinct of an engineer. A man who had spent his life figuring out how broken things could still be fixed. The slab weighed maybe 90 kilos, crushing her lower leg. Blood was seeping fast, a clear sign of a severe fracture, possibly severed vessels. If he didn't act soon, she could go into shock. The Seattle rain began to fall again, cold drops mixing with blood and cement dust. "It's okay," Aaron said, forcing his voice to stay calm even as his heart pounded. "I'm here. You're going to be all right." Her eyes locked onto his, clinging to that face as if it were the only steady thing left in a collapsing world. You have somewhere important to be," she murmured faintly. "I can see it." "Nothing's more important than this," Aaron lied, pulling out his phone and dialing 911. The dispatcher's voice was rushed, exhausted. The city was in chaos. Too many emergencies at once. Ambulances were on their way, but delayed. She asked, "Can you stay with the victim? Do you know first aid?" Aaron looked at his watch. 9:25. 5 minutes until the interview. He thought of Sam's face that morning, the innocent look in his son's eyes when he asked about pizza Fridays. He thought of their cramped apartment, barely affordable, of the medical bills that never stopped coming, of the opportunity he had spent half a year preparing for, now slipping away, second by second. Then he looked at the woman in front of him. Her eyes trembled, desperate, holding on to him as if he were the last flicker of hope she had left. Aaron took a deep breath and said to the dispatcher firmly, "I'll stay." "Tell me what I need to do." The dispatcher's voice crackled through the phone, professional but laced with tension. Aaron followed every instruction while his hands were already moving. The navy blue tie, the only one he owned. He loosened it, fingers trembling not from fear, but from the feeling that everything was slipping out of his control. He wrapped it tightly above the wound, pulling it firm to form a makeshift tourniquet. The woman cried out in pain. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry," Aaron murmured, his voice catching. "I know it hurts. But you have to stay awake, okay? Stay awake." Rain began to fall harder. Cold drops drummed against his neck, soaking through his suit jacket. But Aaron no longer noticed. His whole world had narrowed to the woman's shallow breaths, her paling skin, and the fear in her eyes. He looked around. Amid the rubble, Aaron spotted a few broken wooden beams. He wedged them carefully, using them as levers to lift the slab of concrete, millimeter by millimeter. Sweat mixed with rain on his forehead. His arms strained. The shoulder seam of his jacket tore open. "Almost there. Almost there," he muttered, unsure if he was speaking to her or himself. Finally, when the slab was raised just enough, Aaron bent down and pulled her leg free. She passed out from the pain. His suit jacket became a pillow. His once pristine white shirt, pressed smooth that very morning, was torn into strips to bandage her wound. Blood seeped through the fabric. A stranger's blood, on the only clothes he had. On the clothes he had believed would make him look like a man worthy of a new future. 9:42. The interview had already been underway for 12 minutes. Somewhere on the 14th floor, they were probably waiting for a candidate who would never arrive. The woman opened her eyes briefly, trying to focus on his face. Your name?" "Aaron," he rasped. "Aaron Cole." "I'm Lila," she whispered. Then her eyes closed again, her breathing shallow. Aaron held her hand tightly, checking her pulse every 30 seconds, listening for the sirens that grew louder, but still didn't appear. In his mind, the interview room flickered, people in pressed suits, the questions he'd rehearsed hundreds of times. 6 months of preparation, 2 rounds behind him, the opportunity slipping away by the minute. But he didn't let go of Lila's hand. A memory stabbed through him. Rebecca. The car accident 3 years ago. He hadn't been there when it happened. Couldn't do anything. But today, he was here. Today, he could save someone, even if it meant losing everything else. 9:55. The ambulance arrived. By then, Aaron's shirt was soaked in blood. Not his own. His hands were caked in dust and flecks of concrete. The gray suit lay under Lila's head, wet and torn. The paramedics rushed in, working with practiced speed. They secured Lila onto a stretcher. One of them turned to Aaron, shouting over the rain, "You did great. Without you, she might have lost too much blood." Lila's eyes opened one last time. She looked at him deeply, grateful, yet disbelieving. Her lips moved. Aaron couldn't hear. Maybe she said, "Thank you." Maybe it was something else. The doors slammed shut, and she was gone. Aaron stood in the cold, wet alley, staring down at himself. The suit, ruined. The tie, somewhere in the ambulance. The shirt, shredded, blood-stained to the cuffs. His hair, covered in dust and ash. He looked like a man who had survived a war. But still, he walked to the Horizon Engineering Group building. The ground floor lobby was chaos, employees evacuating, security directing crowds. Aaron approached the reception desk, where a young woman was frantically answering phones. I had an interview," he said hoarsely. "14th floor. Engineering position. I'm late." She glanced at him briefly, the blood-soaked, dust-covered man with torn clothes. "All interviews today have been cancelled due to the earthquake," she said quickly. "You'll get an email about rescheduling." "When?" "I'm not sure, sir. We need to check the building's safety first. Please, go outside with everyone else." Aaron nodded, exhausted, said nothing more. Outside, he found a stone bench 2 blocks away and sat down. The rain hadn't stopped. He sat there, trying to make sense of what had just happened. 6 months of preparation. 2 rounds of interviews. All gone within hours. For a stranger. A stranger whose name he had only just learned. Lila. His phone buzzed. New email. "Dear Mr. Aaron Cole, due to this morning's earthquake, your interview has been cancelled. We will not be rescheduling at this time. Thank you for your interest in Horizon Engineering Group. No postponement. No reschedule. Cancelled." They had chosen someone else. The door was closed. Aaron sat there until his hands stopped trembling, until the emptiness gave way to a heavy ache in his chest. He thought of Sam, sitting in class, believing his dad would bring home good news today. Thought of the small apartment, the unpaid bills, the old job with just enough pay. Thought of the feeling of being left behind, even after trying so hard. But above all, he thought of Lila's eyes. Eyes that had looked at him as if he were the only steady thing in a collapsing world. And in that moment, Aaron understood. He had made the only choice he could live with. The only choice that would let him look his son in the eyes and teach him what it truly meant to be a good man, even if it meant losing everything else. 3 p.m. Outside the school gates. Aaron stood among the crowd of parents waiting for their children to be dismissed. He could feel their eyes on him, the damp, stained suit doing little to hide the signs of the day he'd had. He had tried wiping it clean in the cafe restroom, but some things, no matter how hard you tried, just wouldn't wash away. From a distance, Sam came running out, his backpack bouncing behind him, face beaming with excitement. "Dad!" Then he stopped short. His eyes widened as he took in Aaron from head to toe. Dad, what happened to you? Aaron knelt down so they were eye level. I'm okay, buddy. It's just been a long day. Did you get the job? That question, the one Aaron had been dreading all afternoon. He looked into his son's wide, hopeful eyes. 7 years old. Too young to worry about money. Too young to understand what adults sometimes had to lose. The interview got canceled, son. There was an earthquake, and I had to help someone. Sam was silent. He looked down at his father's dirt-stained hands. Was it important? Very important. More important than the new job? Aaron swallowed hard. Someone would have died if I hadn't helped. So, yeah, buddy. More important? Sam nodded slowly. Then, suddenly, he threw his arms around his father, pressing his face into Aaron's shoulder. We'll still be okay, right, Dad? Aaron hugged him tight, forcing his voice not to tremble. We'll be okay, son. I promise. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure he believed it. Life returned to its old rhythm, only heavier. Aaron went back to his former job. Same mid-level office, same low pay, same feeling of being stuck. He didn't tell Sam that the interview had been canceled. He didn't want to see the disappointment in his boy's eyes. Instead, he carried on, worked, endured. Because when your child depends on you, quitting isn't an option. But every night, after Sam had gone to bed, Aaron sat alone in the dim kitchen. In front of him lay the stack of bills. $14,827 in unpaid hospital debt. Still not cleared. Rent, 2 weeks overdue. Sam's tuition, about to increase next term. And the refrigerator, wheezing as if it might give up any day. Sometimes, in his weakest moments, Aaron asked himself if he had made the right choice. Was saving a stranger worth his son still sleeping on that old sofa? Worth eating instant noodles while other kids ate real meals? Then he remembered Lila's eyes, the way they had clung to him like the last thread of hope. And he knew, no matter how hard it got, if he could go back, he would do it all over again. Because some things mattered more than money. But that truth didn't make the nights any easier. The Mill Cafe, Finney Avenue. Aaron often came here when he needed quiet, to think, or just to escape the noise of the office. The cafe had strong Wi-Fi, good coffee, and a barista who knew him well enough to start making his order the moment he walked in. He sat in his usual corner, eyes on his laptop screen, fine-tuning a mechanical design during his lunch break. Then, someone sat down at the table beside him. Aaron glanced up out of habit, and his heart stopped. It was her. Lila, the woman from the earthquake. She looked completely different now. Composed, professional, her hair neatly trimmed and softly curled. The scar on her forehead was now just a faint line. She walked with a slight limp, leaning lightly on a cane, but carried herself with strength and grace. She was alive. She had recovered. And she was sitting just a few feet away. Aaron froze, unable to look away. For 3 weeks, he'd thought about her, wondering if she had survived, wondering if she remembered him. But he never imagined he'd actually see her again. Leela was absorbed in her phone, unaware of his gaze. When the barista called her name for her drink, she stood up, moving carefully on her injured leg. She reached for her cup just as Aaron stood to stretch, and they nearly collided. "Oh, I'm so sorry." Lila stepped back, voice soft. Then she looked up. Their eyes met, and Aaron saw it, the recognition spreading across her face, shifting from surprise to disbelief, to something close to tears. "It's you." "Hi," Aaron said, his voice rough. "How's your leg?" "You—" She could barely speak. her voice trembling. "I've been looking for you for 3 weeks." Aaron frowned. "Looking for me? The police couldn't find you. The CCTV footage was too blurry. I couldn't remember your last name. All I knew was, you saved my life. I just helped until the ambulance got there." "No," she said, her voice firm now. "You saved my life. And then you disappeared." She gestured toward an empty table. "Can we talk?" "Please?" They sat down. Lila told him what the doctors had said, that if Aaron hadn't stopped the bleeding, if he hadn't kept her awake, she wouldn't have made it. She'd spent 3 weeks searching, asking everyone, rescue workers, police, nurses, even hospital staff, for the man in the gray suit who had pulled her from the rubble. "I wanted to thank you," she said, her voice steady but her eyes soft. "But more than that, I wanted to understand." She paused, meeting his gaze. "You were wearing a suit, I remember. You had somewhere important to be. I could tell, even through the pain. You were supposed to be somewhere." Aaron was silent for a long time. Then he exhaled slowly. "An interview. Final round at Horizon Engineering Group. I'd made it through 2 stages, spent 6 months preparing. It was a big opportunity." Lila's expression changed. Something flickered behind her eyes. "Horizon Engineering Group," she repeated, her voice trembling slightly. "That's right. They canceled everything after the earthquake. Never rescheduled." Aaron tried to sound matter-of-fact, but the disappointment leaked through every word. "Tell me, your full name again?" Lila asked quietly. "Aaron Cole." "Why?" She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them, her lashes wet. "Aaron, I'm Dr. Lila Peterson. I'm the head of human resources at Horizon Engineering Group." She paused, voice shaking just slightly. "That morning, I was on my way to work. I took that alley as a shortcut." She looked straight at him. "You were coming to interview with me." Lila's words hung in the air, heavy, echoing in Aaron's mind like the aftershock of an earthquake. For a brief moment, he felt as if the ground were shaking again, as if the Seattle quake had never truly stopped. The woman he had saved was the same woman he had lost his one shot at the interview for. Fate, it seemed, had a cruel sense of irony. "I didn't know," Aaron said, his voice hoarse, each word pulled out like it weighed a ton. "When I saw you lying there in that alley, I didn't recognize you. I didn't know you worked at Horizon, or who you were. I just saw someone who needed help." Lila nodded softly. Her hand hovered in the air for a moment, as if she wanted to touch him, then hesitated. "I know, and that's exactly what makes it hurt more." She took a deep breath, steadying her voice. "Aaron, you lost everything that day, because of me. And I didn't even know your name until I went back to the office and saw it on the list of canceled interviews." She pulled out her phone, scrolled a few times, and turned the screen toward him. It was his application file, his profile photo, resume, personal details, list of projects and experiences. "You spent 6 months preparing," Lila said, her voice trembling. "Your degrees, your references, your experience. You made it all the way to the final round. And then you didn't show up because—" She stopped. Her throat tightened. "Because of you," Aaron finished quietly. But his tone was soft, without anger, without bitterness. Just the truth. Silence filled the space between them. The hiss of the espresso machine, the patter of rain against the glass, the faint clink of a spoon, all fading into a distant hum. Finally, Lila spoke again, her voice low but steady. "I want to make this right. I want to give you another chance. Another interview." "No." The word escaped faster than he expected. He drew a breath, softening his tone. "Thank you, but no." "Why not?" Lila asked, her eyes widening. "You deserve that chance. You earned it. The earthquake took away something that was rightfully yours." "Maybe," Aaron said, leaning back in his chair, looking straight into her eyes. "But if I went to that interview now, I'd never know if I got the job because of my skills, or because I saved your life. And I need to know that if I ever succeed, it's because I earned it, not because someone feels indebted to me." Lila held his gaze for a long time, eyes deep and unreadable. Finally, she exhaled softly. "Then, what if it's not about the job?" she said quietly. "What if it's just about getting to know you?" Aaron frowned. "Getting to know me? You saved my life, Aaron. I can't just say thank you and walk away like nothing happened. I want to know who you are, not as a candidate, not as someone I owe, but as a person." Her voice softened. "Maybe we could start with coffee. No strings, no obligations, just friends." Aaron said nothing for a while, thinking. Something in her tone, raw, sincere, disarmed him. "All right," he said at last. "I'd like that." For the first time, Lila smiled, a real smile, gentle, warm, genuine, and something inside Aaron's chest seemed to melt. 3 months later, their coffee meetings had become a habit. Once a week, then twice, then more often. Lila told him about her work at Horizon, about the pressure of being the CEO's daughter, and the constant shadow of doubt, whether people respected her for her ability or her last name, Peterson. Aaron told her about Sam, about Rebecca, his wife who had passed away 3 years ago, and about the long nights spent working overtime while trying to be both parents. They never talked about the interview, never about the lost opportunity or his career path. They just listened to each other. Time passed. 1 month, 2. Lila began to appear more and more in their daily lives. She brought Sam old robot parts, patiently listening as he explained how each piece worked. She came to his school's science fair, cheering wildly when he won second place, as if it were the biggest victory in the world. She fit into their lives so naturally that sometimes Aaron forgot. She was the woman he had once pulled from the rubble. One Saturday afternoon, at Kerry Park, Sam was playing near the slide, his laughter echoing across the playground. Lila sat beside Aaron on the bench, watching him, then turned, her voice softer. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "That day, when you stopped to help me instead of going to your interview, what were you thinking?" Aaron was quiet for a while, eyes following Sam as he helped another kid onto the swing. "I was thinking, you needed help, and I could help. No job, no matter how important, is worth walking past someone who's dying." Lila nodded slowly. "You're a good man, Aaron Cole." He smiled faintly. "Not really. I'm just a father trying to live in a way my son can be proud of. Trying to teach him through actions, not words." She was silent for a long time, then spoke softly. "I've been thinking about something. Not about giving you a job. I know you wouldn't accept that. Something else." "What's that?" "You once told me you dreamed of starting your own engineering consultancy. You have the skills, but you lack the funding and the right connections." She turned to him, eyes sincere and focused. "What if I helped with that, through my contacts? Not with money, not with favoritism, just introductions. My father knows people in the Northwest engineering sector. I can connect you with them. After that, it's all up to you." Aaron fell silent. A heavy emotion rose in his chest. "Lila, it's not charity," she said quickly, afraid he might misunderstand. "And it's not repayment. It's just, I see someone with real talent being wasted, and I believe you can build something that's truly yours. He wanted to refuse, to protect his pride, to avoid even a hint of dependence. But then he thought of Sam. The nights his son slept on the sofa, the bills still unpaid, the dream of finally creating a better future. He lifted his gaze, voice rough but steady. "All right, but only on one condition. You introduce me only to people who genuinely need the service. No favoritism, no persuasion. If my work isn't good enough, that's on me, deal," Lila said with a soft smile. A small smile, but it made the world seem a little brighter. Aaron smiled back. For the first time in months, he felt something like hope. Not the vague kind, but the real kind that comes when you know you still have the power to begin again. Outside, the Seattle rain fell lightly, gentle, soothing. But this time, it didn't feel cold. This time, it carried the warmth of a new beginning. In the months that followed, Lila's father made the introductions, and Aaron followed through with professionalism and quiet skill. He registered his own business, Cole Engineering Solutions, with a logo drawn by Sam, a little robot holding a wrench. Their first client was a small manufacturing company. Aaron arrived in a new suit, the first he'd bought in years. Not fancy, but sharp and clean. The meeting went well. They wanted him to analyze their production line, identify bottlenecks, and suggest improvements. For 2 straight weeks, every night after Sam went to bed, Aaron worked tirelessly, analyzing data, building models, refining solutions. When he presented his final report, the director's eyes lit up. "This could save us $40,000 a year." "At least," Aaron nodded. "If we implement Phase 2, the savings could reach $75,000. They signed a long-term contract on the spot, and soon recommended him to another company. Then another. But not everything went smoothly. The third client, a larger tech firm, was a disaster. The project manager didn't like Aaron's approach, called his proposals impractical and a waste of time. The meeting ended early, no contract, no payment for the work he'd already done. Aaron sat in his car, forehead resting on the steering wheel, that old familiar doubt creeping back in. Maybe he wasn't good enough. Maybe he was a fool to think he could stand on his own. His phone buzzed, a message from Lila. "Sam just sent me a video of his new robot. He's so proud. You're teaching him what perseverance means." Aaron stared at the text for a long moment. Then he started the engine and drove home. There was still work to do, still clients to find, still a child to raise. Failure wasn't the end, just another lesson. By winter, 6 months after the earthquake, Aaron had 4 regular clients, not rich, but stable. Enough to move into a slightly bigger apartment, one where Sam finally had his own bedroom. Not the kind of corporate stability he once chased, but something better: autonomy, purpose, and work that made him proud. And through it all, Lila was there. Not as a savior, not as a benefactor, but as a friend. The one who showed up at Sam's school events, who helped with homework, who brought dinner when Aaron worked late. The one who slowly became an inseparable part of their lives, so gradually that Aaron couldn't even pinpoint when it had happened. One night, as Aaron tucked Sam into bed, the boy paused and looked up at him. "Dad," Sam asked softly, "do you like Miss Lila?" "Of course I do, buddy. She's our friend." "No, I mean," Sam frowned in concentration. "Do you like her? Like you used to like Mom?" Aaron froze. He'd been avoiding that question, and the feeling that had quietly grown with each coffee shared, each smile exchanged, each moment her hand brushed his, and made his chest tighten. "It's complicated," he finally said. "Why?" "Because Miss Lila is special, and I don't want to ruin what we have just because I might want more than she's ready to give." Sam was silent for a moment, then said with the gentle wisdom only children have, "Mom used to say love is about being brave. It's scary, but it's worth it." Rebecca had said that on their very first date, awkward but sincere, that opening your heart was the bravest thing a person could do. "Your mom was a smart woman," Aaron whispered, his throat tight. Sam hugged him hard. "You're smart too, Dad. You'll know what to do." The following Saturday, Aaron asked Lila out to dinner, just the two of them. No Sam, no pretending it was just friendship anymore. She said yes immediately, her bright, hopeful smile making his heart race. They met at a small Italian restaurant in Capitol Hill. Sitting across from each other in candlelight, with glasses of wine between them, everything felt different, charged, deliberate. "I need to tell you something," Aaron began after ordering. "I'm afraid of ruining what we have, but I can't keep pretending I don't feel this." Lila's hand reached for his, this time without hesitation. "I'm in love with you, Aaron," she said softly. "And I have been for months, long before I even understood what was happening." Relief and joy flooded through him. "I love you too," he admitted, "and I'm scared, because since Rebecca, I never wanted to feel this way again. But you make me want to be brave enough to try." "Then let's try," Lila smiled. "Let's see where it takes us." They didn't rush. They took their time to build something real and honest. Lila met Mrs. Chen, the elderly neighbor who had become like family to Aaron. Aaron formally met Lila's father, not as a job candidate, but as the man dating his daughter. They learned to balance, to make room for new love while honoring the old pain. 1 year after the earthquake. Aaron stood in his new office, small but his. On his desk sat a framed photo. Him, Lila, and Sam at Alki Beach, squinting under the sun, laughing. Beside it, another frame, older, worn. Rebecca, Aaron, and baby Sam. 2 families, 2 loves, coexisting peacefully. His phone buzzed. A text from Lila. "Dinner tonight? Sam wants to show you his new robot design." Aaron smiled and typed back, "Can't wait." There was a time he thought saving Lila had cost him everything. His job, his stability, the future he'd planned. But now, standing in the office he built himself, surrounded by work he was proud of, and loved by a woman who saw him clearly and stayed anyway. Aaron understood he'd been wrong. He hadn't lost anything. He'd been given a choice. Seattle was still raining. But within that gray light, there were hearts that stayed warm. And sometimes, that was enough. In the 4th month of their relationship, the first cracks began to show. Silent, almost invisible. And Aaron discovered them, completely by accident. He was searching through old project files in his email when he noticed a thread from 2 months earlier. Follow-up, referral, Aaron Cole. The sender, Lila. He opened it, and a chill spread through him, cold and sharp as ice. Lila hadn't just introduced him. She had advocated for him, told the client about his unique circumstances, implying that hiring him would be a kind gesture for the company. Aaron opened another thread. The second client, the same. Lila had called them too, setting context, encouraging them to give him a chance. He sat motionless, staring at the screen. Everything he'd built, his work, his reputation, his belief that he had earned his place on his own, suddenly felt fragile. Had it all been pity? That evening, Lila came for dinner. Sam was staying over at Mrs. Chen's. Aaron needed to talk, alone. "I found this," he said without preamble, placing a printed email on the kitchen table. Lila looked down. Her face went pale. "Aaron?" "I asked you for one thing," he said, voice trembling as he fought to keep calm. "Just one thing. Don't give me any special treatment. Don't let me have something I haven't earned." "You deserve all of it," she cried, voice breaking. "Can't you see? You have talent, skill, but no one gave you a chance because they didn't know who you were. That's how the world works, Lila." Aaron's fists clenched. "And now I'll never know if my success is real, or if they just felt sorry for me." "They didn't feel sorry for you." Lila stepped closer, tears glimmering. "They hired you because your work was exceptional. Yes, I opened the door, but you were the one who walked through and proved yourself." "You don't understand." Aaron turned away, gripping his hair, voice rough. "You don't understand what this means to me. I've had to fight for everything my whole life, and this time, I thought I'd done it on my own." He paused, breathing hard. "Now I just feel like some charity case, a broken man you wanted to fix." "You're not a charity project," Lila whispered, tears falling. "You're the man I love. The man who gave up everything to save a stranger. And if helping you build the life you deserve makes me guilty, then I'm not sorry for that." The small kitchen filled with a heavy, suffocating silence. Finally, Aaron spoke, his voice low and hoarse. "I need time. I need to think about all this. Aaron, please." "Please, Lila. I just need space." She nodded, wiping her tears, and quietly left. 2 weeks of silence. The longest 2 weeks of Aaron's life. Sam asked about Lila every day. "Dad, why isn't Miss Lila coming over anymore? Did you two have a fight?" Aaron didn't know how to explain. How to make an 8-year-old understand pride, fear, the pain of wondering if love had turned into pity after years of surviving on self-reliance. Every night, he sat at his desk, staring at his projects and contracts. Were they truly good? Or just courtesy to please her? Then, one evening, his inbox lit up. An email from the third client. The same one who had dismissed his proposal months ago, calling it impractical. "Dear Mr. Cole, after re-evaluating your recommendations, we've realized you were correct. Some of your suggested solutions have been implemented and resulted in significant savings. We'd like to invite you to collaborate on a new project. No introductions, no context, no special circumstances. Just his work, speaking for itself." Aaron stared at the email for a long time. He thought of Rebecca. If she were still alive, she would have laughed softly and said, "You idiot. Pride isn't worth losing someone you love. Accepting help doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." He thought of that day. The earthquake. The moment he'd abandoned his interview to save a stranger. He hadn't done it for praise or reward. He'd done it because it was the right thing to do. And maybe that's what Lila had done too. Not out of obligation, not out of pity, but because she saw a man with worth being overlooked, because she believed in him. And maybe accepting love required courage, the same kind of courage it had taken to stop in that ruined alley. That night at 10 p.m., Aaron called her. "Lila, I'm sorry." There was silence on the other end. "Sorry. For what?" she asked quietly. "For being too proud. Too afraid. You were right. You opened the door, but I was the one who walked through. My work is real. My success is real. And I was wrong to think that accepting help made it less. Aaron, all my life, I've fought alone," he continued softly. "I thought that was the only way to prove myself. But maybe real strength isn't about doing everything alone. Maybe it's knowing when to let someone stand beside you." He heard her inhale shakily on the other end. "Can you forgive me?" "There's nothing to forgive." Her voice trembled. "You had every right to feel that way. And you were right. I shouldn't have hidden it from you. I just wanted to help. I know." And now I understand. A gentle, fragile silence filled the space between them. But it was warm. Then Lila whispered, "I've missed you. I'm sure Sam's missed me too." "We have." "So much. Then, can we start over? No secrets, no favors, just honesty?" Aaron smiled, the first real smile in 2 weeks. "Honesty. That's what I want too." And on that quiet Seattle night, through phone lines damp with mist and rain, two people who had once saved each other found their way back again. They didn't rush back into each other's arms this time. This time they moved slowly, rebuilding from the smallest things, every conversation, every glance, every moment of honesty. That Saturday afternoon, they met at Gasworks Park. A soft drizzle fell, the kind of rain Seattle was famous for, the kind locals barely noticed anymore. Aaron and Lila sat side by side on a stone bench overlooking Lake Union, silent for a few minutes. It wasn't an awkward silence. It was the kind that felt safe, shared. "I've been thinking a lot about Rebecca," Aaron said quietly. "About not being there when she needed me. About how I couldn't save her." Lila didn't interrupt. She simply listened, her eyes calm, patient, and kind. "And I realized," he continued, "maybe that's why I reacted so strongly when you tried to help me. Because I was afraid. Afraid that if I let myself lean on someone again, and they disappeared, I wouldn't survive it a second time." "You would," Lila said softly, her voice like a breeze. "But you don't have to do it alone. That's what I want you to understand." She turned toward him, meeting his eyes. "I'm not trying to fix you, Aaron. You're not broken. I just want to stand beside you, to build something with you. Not because you need me, but because we're better together." Aaron took her hand gently. For the first time in 2 weeks, he felt something inside his chest unclench. "I'm ready to try again," he said, "but slowly. And honestly. No secrets, no kind favors. Just us, Lila whispered, with a small, tender smile. Sam was the happiest when Lila returned. "I knew it!" he shouted when she appeared at the door. "I knew Dad would fix it." "He's the best fixer ever." Lila laughed, kneeling to hug him. "Your dad really is good at fixing things." But that night, as Aaron tucked Sam into bed, the boy grew unusually quiet. "Dad, if Miss Lila becomes my stepmom..." He hesitated, biting his lip. "Does that mean I'm forgetting Mom?" The question shattered Aaron's heart, then slowly mended it again. He sat down beside his son, pulling him close. "No, son. Never. Loving someone new doesn't mean forgetting the one who's gone. Your heart's big enough for both. You can love Mom forever, and still love Lila. No one replaces anyone." "She's not like Mom," Sam said softly. "No, she's different, and that's okay." He paused, then nodded thoughtfully. "I think Mom would like Miss Lila. She makes you smile more." Aaron's eyes stung as he hugged his son tight. "I think she would too, buddy." "I think she would too." A month later, Lila's father invited Aaron to dinner. It wasn't their first meeting, but this time it felt different, formal, quiet, deliberate. In the study overlooking Puget Sound, 2 glasses of whiskey shimmered under the golden lamp between them. "Lila's told me everything," said Robert Peterson, his voice measured. "About the earthquake. About what you did. and about you turning down the second interview." Aaron nodded silently. "I'll be honest," Robert went on. "At first, I thought you were taking advantage of her, that you saved her hoping to gain something from our family." He took a sip, his gaze steady on Aaron's face. "But I was wrong. You could have had everything. The job, the money, the connections. But you said no. You chose the harder road, just to prove your worth. And that I respect." He paused, then said clearly, "That's the kind of man I want my daughter to be with." Relief washed through Aaron like sunlight breaking after days of rain. "Mr. Peterson," he said quietly, "I love your daughter. And I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of her." Robert smiled faintly. "She doesn't need you to be worthy. She just needs you to love her. The rest will sort itself out. Spring, the following year. 18 months after the earthquake. Cole Engineering Solutions now had a real office. Small, just 2 rooms, but with a sign on the door and a 3-person team. Aaron was still the lead engineer, but now he had an assistant and a junior engineer he was mentoring. Business was steady. Not rich, but enough. Enough to live comfortably. Enough to be proud that everything he had was built by his own hands. One April evening, in their new apartment, 3 bedrooms, windows overlooking the lake, and a special corner where Sam kept his robots, Aaron was cooking dinner. When Lila walked in, her hair damp from the drizzle, Sam rushed over. "Miss Lila, I have something to show you." After dinner, when Sam had gone to bed, Aaron and Lila sat together on the sofa. The city lights shimmered on the lake through the thin veil of rain. "I've been thinking," Aaron said softly. "About what?" Lila turned to him. "About how life works. How sometimes the worst things lead to the best ones. How sometimes you have to lose everything to find what really matters. Aaron, I lost that interview. I lost the chance I worked so hard for. But I found you. And you've given me more than any job ever could." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I don't have a big diamond ring or a fancy proposal, but I have this." He opened it, revealing a simple, elegant ring. Delicate, honest, timeless, just like them. "And I have my heart," he said, voice trembling. "All of it. And a promise to love you, respect you, and build this life with you." He looked straight into her eyes. "Lila Peterson, will you marry me?" Tears rolled down Lila's cheeks as her smile broke wide and bright. "Yes." "Yes." 1,000 times yes. Aaron slipped the ring onto her finger. They embraced, kissing softly under the warm glow of their apartment lights, while outside the Seattle rain fell, gentle, patient, almost like a blessing. And for the first time since Rebecca's death, Aaron felt whole again, not because Lila filled the void, but because she taught him how to live with it, how to love again, how to believe that happiness isn't something you fight to earn. It's something you finally realize you deserve. In a city of rain and cold light, 2 hearts once broken had found each other among the ruins, and together built something beautiful. 2 years after the earthquake. Aaron stood in the narrow alley in Fremont, the place where everything began. Now, there was no trace of chaos, no shattered concrete, no ambulance sirens, just an ordinary alley between 2 buildings, calm and quiet. But for Aaron, it would never be just an ordinary alley. This was the place that redefined his entire life. Lila stood beside him, her wedding ring glinting softly as she held his hand. Across from them, Sam, now 10 years old, clutched a brand-new robot, more intricate and sophisticated than ever, yet still filled with the same love, imagination, and innocence of the boy who once watched his father do the right thing. "This is where you saved Miss Lila, right?" Sam asked, eyes wide with curiosity. Aaron nodded. "That's right, son." "And you lost the big job because of it?" Aaron smiled, glancing at Lila. "Yes, but I got something much bigger in return." Sam frowned thoughtfully, then nodded with unusual seriousness. "I get it. Some things are more important than work." Aaron knelt down so they were eye to eye. "Do you know what's most important, Sam?" The boy thought for a moment. "People?" Aaron smiled. "Exactly. Always people. Jobs can be lost. Money can run out. But how you treat others, the choices you make when things get hard, that's what defines who you are." Sam threw his arms around him, hugging tight. "I'm proud of you, Dad." And in that moment, Aaron knew. No matter how many times the world might collapse, as long as love remained, he would always stand up again. That evening, in their apartment overlooking Lake Union, Aaron stood by the window, quietly watching the Seattle rain tap against the glass. That sound, once a reminder of loneliness, now made him smile. Because he understood now, rain wasn't just a symbol of sadness. It was renewal, the world's way of cleansing itself before something new begins. On his desk sat 3 framed photos. Rebecca, the woman who taught him what love meant. Lila, the woman who taught him to trust again. And Sam, the reason he kept moving forward, day after day. Lila walked up, wrapped her arms around his waist, and rested her head on his shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. Aaron smiled faintly. "That day. The day I thought I'd lost everything." He turned to her, to the warmth and steadiness in her eyes. "But really, that was the day I found everything. Not a job, not money, but meaning, love, and the understanding that success isn't measured by what we have, but by what we give." Lila tilted her head. "And you don't regret it?" Aaron's smile deepened. Not for a single second. The earthquake had shaken Aaron's world to its core, but from its ruins, he built a life, stronger, steadier, and truly his own. Not because someone handed it to him, but because he had the courage to reach out, at the one moment that truly mattered. And that courage became the foundation of who he was. The Seattle rain kept falling, but now, amid the cold light and the damp streets, there were hearts that still burned warm. Aaron's story ends here, but his lesson, and ours, lives on. Sometimes loss isn't the end. Sometimes it's life's way of stopping us, so we can finally see what truly matters. Because happiness isn't found in success. It's found in courage. The courage to do what's right, even when no one is watching. If you believe kindness still has a place in this world, subscribe, turn on notifications, and don't miss the next story, where justice, love, and courage always find their way back. Thank you for watching until the end. See you in the next video, where one small act can change an entire life.